Let's listen to Dr. Richard Dawkins. He's the face of the new atheist movement, which is all but dead and buried. This is the latest example of the question atheists can't answer, but Christians can. This was a recent interview where atheist Alex O'Connor showed big holes in Dr. Dawkins' beliefs. Dr. Dawkins couldn't keep himself from talking about the Bible. So let's listen to Alex set the table.
You know, when you're debating the moral argument with people, when they say without God there could be no morality, and sometimes an atheist says, well, how dare you say that I can't be moral without God? And they say, I'm not saying you can't be moral without God, I'm just saying you can't ground your morality.
Yeah.
And yet, on the other hand, they say, but we need you to believe in God, otherwise society falls apart. Maybe you are actually saying that people can't be moral without God, more than just their ability to ground it, if you're saying that without this religious belief, society will fall apart.
So Alex raises the question of morality. Christians say atheists have no solid ground to stand on when it comes to saying what is right and wrong. Alex then asks, how do atheists have solid ground to stand on without religion? What does Dr. Dawkins say? Let's listen to his reply.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I recognize that some people may think that.
Did you catch it? Alex asks, can atheists have a solid foundation for right and wrong without God? Dr. Dawkins says, I wouldn't say that, but I recognize some people may think that. Two big problems. First, earlier Alex called Dr. Dawkins' book the atheist book, like it was the Bible for atheists. And for millions of atheists, it was their Bible. But who is Dr. Dawkins to say no? Him saying, I wouldn't say that, means nothing, zilch, zero. Who is he? God? His words mean nothing on a question like this. And this is the point Alex is making. If all right and wrong comes down to is what we say, even with revered men like Dr. Dawkins, we have no solid ground to argue anything is right or wrong. Second problem, when he says he sees why people say there's no solid ground for morality without religion, it's the same mistake. Again, who is Dr. Dawkins to be the judge of what is right, what is wrong, what makes sense, and what doesn't make sense? This is the whole problem that Alex is raising. With no ultimate authority like God, you have no solid ground to say anything is right or wrong. Alex can see the folly, but new atheists who idolize Dr. Dawkins stay blinded. But this gets worse as he continues. Listen to what Dr. Dawkins says next.
I mean, I think that to ground your morality certainly in the Bible would be an appalling thing to do. If you actually look at the Bible, actually look at almost any of the moral lessons you can take from it. And some of the things Jesus said are very nice, but you have to pick and choose your way through. And setting aside Jesus's emphasis on loving your neighbor, which is very nice. The Sermon on the Mount is very nice. The fundamental doctrine of the Old Testament, of course, is appalling. But even
putting the Old Testament aside, in the New Testament,
even the New Testament.
This is comical, and this happens when you get to talk out of both sides of your mouth, and millions praise you for it. That's why it was so funny when Dawkins praised Darwin. Alex checked him, and then he stopped fast. In seconds, he went from confidence to timid and admitting the opposite. But back to the point. He had bad things to say about the Old and New Testament. He is going to continue in a moment, but follow his logic. Based on Dr. Dawkins' unsolid ground, he thinks the Bible is appalling on things of morals. But I'll ask again, who is Dr. Dawkins to say anything is right or wrong? The atheistic communist Stalin killed millions. Hitler killed millions. All Dr. Dawkins has is an opinion on why it was wrong. Atheists can never say they were wrong for what they did and have any solid ground to stand on. In the middle of the interview, he talks about popular apologist Dr. William Lane Craig. Listen to why he says he won't debate him.
I feel such contempt for him because of his, I don't know whether you've seen what he says about the Israelites slaughtering the Midianites and I mean, instead of saying what any decent theologian would say, well, it never happened, this is just an Old Testament story. He says, well, the Midianites had it coming because they were so sinful. And then if you worry about the Midianite children who had their brains beaten out of them, that's okay because they went straight to heaven.
It's amazing to me when atheists like Dawkins attack the Old Testament for God judging anybody to death. He's talking down on Dr. Craig for believing Israelites clobbered children's heads. Atheists are fine though with clobbering millions of babies' heads every year right now. hypocrisy and shifting sand at its finest. Unless you have an ultimate authority to judge, you have nothing. Stalin, Hitler are within the last 100 years. The 50 million babies aborted every year is current. There is no solid ground anyone who believes, like Dawkins, can stand on to say they are evil. Each of those examples, by themselves, is more death than anything in the Old Testament. Christians can say on solid grounds, Stalin, Hitler, and ending life in the womb is evil. We can say with confidence, God can end anyone's life as the ultimate judge, but Dr. Dawkins cannot say Hitler, Stalin, or abortion is wrong today with any solid ground. But by what standard is he saying this in the Bible is bad, or this in the Bible is good? How can he say in any meaningful way the Bible is appalling? He can have an opinion and belief like us all, but that's an opinion, so what? He's so influenced by Christianity, he's attacking the Bible that gives him the morals, but doesn't realize without the effect of the Bible in the world, he wouldn't have those morals, at least not to stand on. I'm sure you can see where this is going, but it gets worse.
The idea that we're born in sin is a hideous idea. The idea that the only way to be saved from sin and the wages of sin is Jesus' death is a hideous idea.
It's like Alex led him to an intellectual cliff, and Dr. Dawkins didn't just walk off, he ran and jumped off. How can he say standing on solid ground, original sin, or Jesus dying for the sins of the world is hideous? Saying it's hideous in confidence means nothing from an intellectual level. Alex continues to try and rescue him, but Dr. Dawkins keeps digging a bigger hole. Atheists cannot answer this question without God. This is why society falls apart the more you take God away. But he didn't want to leave it there. After saying Jesus laying his life down for the whole world is hideous, he went one further.
I don't think it's one that Jesus himself ever put forward, is it? I think he probably would be rather shocked at that thought.
It always surprises me why people with limited knowledge of the Bible talk about it, but when you say what you like without getting called on it, you can do what you like. Better yet, when you have no solid ground for right and wrong, you have no solid reason to speak only on things you know. But let me help him out. In Mark 10 verse 45, Jesus said he came to serve, not to get served. Then he says he came to give his life a ransom for many. That Greek word for ransom means his own life was the payment for many other people's lives. And in Mark 14 verse 24, Alex even said, Jesus gave his disciples bread and wine, and Jesus says, "This is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many." It would not shock Jesus his life was a payment for others. That is what he chose to do, and that's what he said. Alex is smart enough to see the problem, but like Dawkins, there are many atheists who can't or don't care about seeing it. But be confident we can ground our morals on God because he created them. But atheists still can't answer this question, and they will never be able to in any way that matters. Jesus was right about people like Dr. Dawkins. Don't get surprised they admit this, like the world's smartest atheist did in this video here. God bless.